Let's talk about the instrument panel. Today's video is all about the instrument panel, whose functionality and itself are common to all latest generation V-Strons. A great thanks to all of you guys out there who support this channel, whether it is with your likes, your interesting comments, but also with your PayPal contributions, as this is a very important factor that also supports this effort. And last but not least, a very special thanks to Baptiste. He knows who he is, and for his really significant gesture. The turn signal indicator is self-explanatory, but note that if a bulb or circuit does not work properly, it will blink faster just to let you know that something is wrong. Next is the rev counter. Again, pretty self-explanatory. However, if the needle does not point exactly at 0, it will need to be reset. And in order to do this, you need your switch to be at the off position. Then press and hold the adjust button, this button here, and while it is being held, turn the ignition switch to on and keep the adjust button held for 4 seconds or more. This will properly adjust or reset the rev counter needle. Oil pressure indicator light, this light over here, together with this symbol, which is again for the oil. Its purpose is to avoid engine and transmission damage due to low oil pressure. It always comes on when the ignition is in the on position, and it comes on together with this symbol when the engine has not started. When the engine starts, it has to switch off, and then all is good. If it still remains after the engine has started, you have to stop the engine immediately. Check the oil level and add if it is necessary. If the level is correct but the light is still on, go into dealer mode to check if there is another problem. Video up here. Traction control indicator light. Normally, when it is on, it means that traction control has not yet been engaged. When the light is off, it usually means that one of the 2 available traction control modes is enabled. The traction control system will control the engine power automatically to limit rear wheel spin and restore the grip. Mode 1 is low sensitivity and allows a certain degree of wheel spin, while Mode 2 is more aggressive. It has got higher sensitivity and is really good for rainy conditions. It really works. You can select a traction control mode whether the bike is stationary or even when driving, but the throttle has to be fully closed to switch between modes. The mode setting, once selected, will remain in memory even after you switch off or even after the battery is disconnected. So you have to switch back to the mode that you wish. To select a particular traction control mode, first you need to press the select button, and what this does is it highlights this area. As you can see, currently the traction control is switched off, and then to select a particular mode you play with the up and down arrows. So if I select down, you see that now traction control mode 1 is enabled. If I press the down arrow one more time, traction control mode 2 is selected. To remove the traction control mode or to change to another one, you simply use the up arrow now, and from traction control mode 2 we pass to traction control mode 1, or we switch it off completely. To get out, you use again the select button, and now the area of the traction control is not highlighted. When a particular traction control mode is selected, the traction control light, this light, will turn off after speed exceeds 5 km per hour. If it does not go off, it means that traction control might be malfunctioning. Also, when a particular traction control mode is selected, so you're, let's say, in traction control mode 1 or mode 2, and you're driving and the traction control mode light has switched off because you exceeded 5 km per hour, when traction control kicks in, this light will blink when it is engaged. FI is a malfunction indicator light. It comes on together with the engine icon at the same time. Both indicate that there is a problem, and it can be a simple one or it can be a serious one. The FI comes on in the odometer display area, and it has two modes. In mode A, the odometer trip meter reading area alternates between the FI and the trip meter reading. At the same time, the malfunction indicator engine icon light is on continuously. This, as mentioned before, signifies that it's a mode A case, and in this case the engine can continue to run, so it's a simple problem. Now mode B is more serious, and the odometer display area indicates the FI continuously, and the malfunction indicator engine icon light blinks when cranking the engine. This is the serious case because the engine cannot start. In either of these two cases, you should put the bike into dealer mode, especially when you see FI or the engine icon light. Video is available up here. The check indication in the odometer area. When you see this check, you have to check the following. First, that the transmission is in neutral, the side stand is fully up, and that the engine stop switch is at the on position. If the check indication light is still on, after all these tests, inspect the ignition fuse and the connection of the lead wire couplers. The The speedometer can be set to kilometers per hour or miles per hour. To do this, set the meter reading to odometer and then hold the adjust button, this button, for 2 seconds. This will change or switch between kilometers per hour and miles per hour, both in the odometer reading but also in the speedometer. So now it's miles per hour. If I press again the adjust button for 2 seconds, it will go to kilometers per hour, and the same is true for the odometer reading. That's kilometers. The thermometer indication will only show the ambient air temperature when ignition is on, and it will display also the indication of low if the air temperature is less than 10 degrees Celsius or 14 degrees Fahrenheit, and it will display the indication high if the air temperature is above 50 degrees Celsius or above 122 degrees Fahrenheit. The freeze or snowflake icon indicator will blink when the air temperature falls below 3 degrees Celsius or 38 degrees Fahrenheit, and it will remain lit after a period of 30 seconds of blinking. It will remain lit continuously until the temperature gets higher than 5 degrees Celsius or 41 degrees Fahrenheit. The ABS indicator light, this light is continuously on if the switch is on and the bike is either stationary or the speed of the bike is less than 5 kilometers per hour. If there is a malfunction, the light will blink or it will stay on irrespective of the speed of the bike. So if the bike exceeds 5 kilometers per hour and the light is still on, it means that something might be wrong. You can try to switch off and on the ignition switch, and maybe it's a small glitch and the ABS light will come off after you exceed 5 kilometers per hour. If not, and this does not fix it, you have to go to your dealer. Now, usually what the problem might be with your ABS is the ABS sensor itself or the cable. So this sensor and this cable here for the front and one on the back, which is similar. So check that this cable is not broken or the sensor is not in any way, again, cracked or broken. Also make sure that this metal ring and the ABS sensor have the right gap between them here in between. So if you ride off-road and there is mud or there is dirt, you need to clean this ring and this area so that the gap is within specified limits. And last but not least, make sure that this metal ring, both in the front and in the rear wheel, is not bent in any way towards the inner or the outer, so that it has the correct gap that I mentioned between the ABS sensor edge and the ring. If it is bent, in some areas it might exceed the specified limits, it might be less or it might be more depending on which direction it is bent. So make sure that this ring is fine, the cable is not broken or cracked, the sensor is okay, and also the ring and the sensor edge are clean from dirt and mud. And then maybe the ABS light might switch off. Last but not least, you should also check your ABS fuse, and also why not put your bike into dealer mode and see if there's any other indication. Next is the coolant temperature reading and the water temperature mark. When coolant temperature exceeds 116 degrees Celsius or 241 degrees Fahrenheit, all 6 bars that you see here appear, and when coolant temperature exceeds 120 degrees Celsius or 248 degrees Fahrenheit, the indicator water temperature mark, which is, it looks like this, it will come on also. In this case, stop the engine and let it cool down immediately, except if the radiator fan is still working, trying to cool the engine off. When the radiator fan stops, then you can switch off the engine and let it cool down completely. After that, and only when engine is cool, put the bike on a level surface and check the coolant level, because you may need to add some coolant. Video up here. The engine coolant temperature indicator light, which is in this area, has to come off for everything to be fine. Remember that an indication of 3 bars for the engine temperature is normal. A continuous indication of 2 bars for the engine temperature is a problem, because it might indicate that there is a problem with the thermostat or with something else. So remember that you need to see 3 bars for normal engine operation. The fuel meter displays 6 segments. These segments over here when completely full, and the gas station pump icon will start to blink when you have more or less 5 liters left in the tank, and when the fuel drops even below 2 liters, this last segment, this one, the first one, which is close to empty, will also start to blink. Then remember that you have only 2 liters or less. Please note that the fuel readings are not correct when the bike is on the side stand. So you have to have the bike upright with the side stand folded and the ignition to on. Then you have to wait approximately 40 seconds and the readings will be correct. The display has 4 functions, namely the instantaneous fuel consumption meter, the average fuel consumption meter, the driving range meter, and last but not least, the voltmeter. To set the instantaneous fuel consumption meter or the average fuel consumption meter between kilometers per liter or liters per 100 kilometers, what you need to do is to press the down arrow in the mode button and hold it for 2 seconds. So now I'm at kilometers per liter. If I press the down arrow and hold it for 2 seconds, it will change to liters per 100 kilometers. If I need to go back again, press the down arrow and hold it for 2 seconds. Similarly, to change or to switch between miles per gallon and kilometers per liter, you have to press the adjust button for 2 seconds And as you can see, this changes into miles per gallon. Again, going back 2 seconds, the adjust button, it goes to liters per 100 kilometers. Another thing to note about the instantaneous fuel consumption meter is that it displays the fuel consumption value only when the motorcycle is moving. If it's not moving, you will see an empty or no reading or dashes in that particular area. Now, regarding the average fuel consumption meter, it displays an average fuel consumption ratio between trip 1 and trip 2 on your motorcycle. Now, the driving range meter displays the estimated is the keyword, the estimated driving range as distance by the remaining fuel, and again, that's an estimation. You should also take a look at your fuel lights or fuel segment blinking to make sure that you don't run out of fuel, let's say. And in some occasions it might take some time to be updated to the correct value or to the approximate value, let's say. So don't expect it to be always 100% accurate and updated. The voltmeter displays the battery voltage within the range of 10 to 16 volts. It's a nice feature to have, again, an idea of how your battery is doing, and also if the bike itself is properly charging the battery when you ride. And if not, and you don't see the volts go up when you ride, then it means that there might be a problem with the charging system. And for this, please refer to my video on electric power related tests for the battery and for the charging system, video up here. Last but not least, there is an odometer, trip meter indication over here. With the up arrow, you can select from the normal odometer readings to your first trip, to a second trip. And last but not least, you can also play around with the instrument panel light brightness. So as many more squares you have here, it is brighter. To adjust the brightness, you simply press the adjust button. So now it's 5, 6, and it starts from the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now the trip meters are both, of course, resettable odometers, and they can be reset. To reset a meter to 0, push the adjust button. And it resets. Hope this video was also helpful. Make sure to subscribe, tune in for more, and leave your comments below.